Imagine this. You're a baseball fan in 1993, and your San Francisco Giants just won 103 games. Barry Bonds is the MVP. Matt Williams crushed 38 home runs. Your team is absolutely stacked and ready for October glory. But there's just one problem. You're not going to the playoffs. Not because you weren't good enough, not because you choked, but because of a system that said 103 wins simply wasn't enough. This is the story of baseball's biggest injustice. The powerhouse teams that were robbed of their October dreams, not by opposing players, but by the very format of the game itself. What you're about to hear will make your blood boil if you're a true baseball fan. We're talking about teams that won 100, even 104 games, only to watch October baseball from their couches. Teams with Hall of Fame players, championship caliber rosters, and season-long dominance that meant absolutely nothing when the calendar turned to October. Before we dive into these heartbreaking stories, let me paint you a picture of just how different baseball used to be. For the first century of Major League Baseball, the rules were simple and brutal. Win your league or division, or go home. No wild cards, no second chances, no mercy. This led to some of the most talented teams in baseball history being denied their shot at immortality. Today we're counting down the most egregious examples of teams that were robbed, not by bad calls or controversial plays, but by a system that punished excellence. Let's start with the most famous case, the 1993 San Francisco Giants. This wasn't just any good team that missed the playoffs. This was a juggernaut that won 103 games and still stayed home. Picture this roster. Barry Bonds, fresh off his first season in San Francisco, putting up MVP numbers with a .336 average, 46 home runs, and 123 RBIs. Matt Williams was launching moonshots at a pace that had people talking about Babe Ruth's record. Will Clark was still in his prime, providing veteran leadership and clutch hitting. The Giants were rolling through the National League West like a freight train. They had the pitching, they had the power, they had everything you need for a championship run. But there was one team standing in their way: the Atlanta Braves. On the final day of the season, it came down to one game. The Giants needed to win to force a playoff. They lost. The Braves, with 104 wins, took the division. The Giants, with 103 wins, went home. Here's what makes this story even more painful. Major League Baseball introduced the wild card the very next year, partly because of the outrage over the Giants' exclusion. If the 1993 season had been played under 1994 rules, the Giants would have been the top wildcard seed and a legitimate World Series contender. Barry Bonds never got that October stage in San Francisco until 2002. Matt Williams never got to showcase his power in the postseason as a Giant. An entire generation of San Francisco fans was robbed of what could have been a magical October run. Now let's travel back to 1954, when even the mighty New York Yankees learned that excellence doesn't guarantee October baseball. The Yankees won 103 games that season, the second most in franchise history up to that point. This was a team loaded with Hall of Famers. Mickey Mantle was entering his prime, Yogi Berra was behind the plate, and Whitey Ford was dealing on the mound. But there was a problem brewing in Cleveland. The Indians, led by Bob Lemon, Early Wynn, and Bob Feller, were having a season for the ages. They won 111 games, a record that stood as the American League mark until the 1998 Yankees broke it. So the Yankees, despite winning 103 games, finished 8 games back and watched October from home. Think about that for a moment. The New York Yankees, the most successful franchise in baseball history, won 103 games and didn't even sniff the playoffs. In today's format, those Yankees would have been a top wildcard seed with home field advantage. Instead, they got to watch the Indians lose to the New York Giants in the World Series, knowing they never got their chance to prove they belonged on that stage. This Yankees team represents something profound about baseball's old system. It didn't matter how good you were if someone else was better. There was no consolation prize for excellence, no second chance for greatness. The 1980 Baltimore Orioles might be the most underappreciated great team in baseball history. They won exactly 100 games, had one of the best rotations in the American League, and featured future Hall of Famer Eddie Murray in his prime. But they had the misfortune of playing in the same division as the New York Yankees, who won 103 games. So once again, a century-mark season meant nothing when October arrived. This Orioles team had everything you want in a championship club. Their pitching staff was anchored by Steve Stone, who won the Cy Young Award that year with a 25-7 record. Scott McGregor and Dennis Martinez provided depth and reliability. The offense was led by Murray, who drove in 116 runs, and Al Bumbry, who provided speed and versatility. What makes this story particularly frustrating is how the Orioles performed in the years surrounding 1980. They made it to the World Series in 1979 and won it all in 1983. The 1980 team might have been better than both of those clubs. We'll never know because they never got their chance. In today's wild card era, those Orioles would have been a dangerous playoff team with the pitching to make a deep run. Instead, they're a footnote in baseball history, a reminder of how the old system could crush dreams regardless of how well you played. The stories don't end there. Baseball history is littered with teams that won 100 games and never played a postseason game. Take the 1909 Chicago Cubs, who won 104 games but finished 6 games behind the Pittsburgh Pirates' 110-win season. This was a Cubs team featuring Three Finger Brown, one of the greatest pitchers of the dead ball era, and they never got to showcase their talents in October. Or consider the 1961 Detroit Tigers, who won 101 games in the year of Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle's home run chase. Norm Cash hit .361 that season, one of the highest averages of the modern era. Rocky Colavito launched 45 home runs. Al Kaline was in his absolute prime, but the Yankees won 109 games, so the Tigers stayed home. The 1942 Brooklyn Dodgers won 104 games with a roster that included Pee Wee Reese, Pete Reiser, and Dolph Camilli. They lost the pennant to the Cardinals by 2 games and never got to play in October. That Dodgers team might have been good enough to beat anyone in a 7-game series, but the format said otherwise. Each of these teams represents a what-if that will haunt baseball history forever. How many potential dynasties were stopped before they started? How many Hall of Fame careers were denied their October moments? How many fans were robbed of memories that could have lasted a lifetime? To understand why these injustices happened, you need to understand how different baseball's playoff system used to be. For the first 100 years of Major League Baseball, it was simple. Win your league, go to the World Series. That was it. When baseball expanded and created divisions in 1969, the system became slightly more forgiving, but not by much. You had to win your division to advance. Period. No wild cards, no second chances, no mercy for the runner-up. This created a system where geography and scheduling could determine your fate as much as talent. If you happen to play in a strong division, tough luck. If your 100-win season coincided with another team's 105-win season, better luck next year. The irony is that baseball's regular season was longer and more grueling than any other major sport, but it offered fewer playoff opportunities than sports with much shorter seasons. A 162-game marathon could end with nothing to show for it except moral victories and what-if scenarios. It wasn't until 1995 that Major League Baseball finally introduced the wild card, giving teams like those 1993 Giants a second chance at October glory. But by then, decades of great teams had already been sacrificed to the old system's unforgiving rules. These stories matter because they remind us how much the game has evolved. Today's fans take the wild card for granted, but it exists because of the injustices we've discussed. The 1993 Giants' heartbreak directly led to the format change that followed. Modern baseball has swung in the opposite direction. Now we have multiple wildcard teams, play-in games, and expanded playoffs that give more teams a chance at October glory. Some purists argue we've gone too far, that making the playoffs has become too easy. But when you look back at teams like the 1980 Orioles or the 1954 Yankees, teams that won 100 games and never got to prove themselves in October, it's hard to argue that the old system was better. Those teams deserved their shot at immortality. The players on those teams carried the disappointment for the rest of their careers. Barry Bonds had to wait until 2002 to finally reach the World Series with San Francisco. Eddie Murray never got to showcase his talents in October as an Oriole during his prime years. Countless Hall of Famers were denied their moments because of a system that valued division titles over overall excellence. Baseball's biggest injustice wasn't a bad call by an umpire or a controversial play that changed history. It was a system that told some of the greatest teams ever assembled that 100 wins wasn't enough, that excellence could be punished by circumstance, and that October dreams could be crushed by mathematics rather than competition. The 1993 Giants, the 1954 Yankees, the 1980 Orioles, and all the other teams we've discussed today represent more than just statistical anomalies. They represent the human cost of an unforgiving system, the players who never got their moment, the fans who never got their memories, and the what-if scenarios that will haunt baseball history forever. Today's expanded playoff format isn't perfect, but it ensures that teams like these get their shot at October glory. Because in the end, that's what baseball is all about, giving greatness a chance to prove itself when the stakes are highest and the lights are brightest. The next time you watch a wild card game, remember the teams that never got that chance. They're the reason those games exist, and their legacy lives on every October. What do you think? Should baseball have changed its playoff format sooner? Or was there something pure about the old system that rewarded only division winners? Which of these robbed teams do you think would have made the deepest playoff run if given the chance? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into baseball history. Next week, we're exploring the greatest comeback seasons in Major League Baseball history, the teams that went from worst to first and shocked the baseball world. Until then, keep loving this beautiful game, and remember, in baseball, as in life, sometimes the best teams don't always get the recognition they deserve.